back out, or something like that. That helped me. You're shaking and nodding at the same time. This is a philosopher's attempt at describing what it is to be perfectly elastic. That is, something is perfectly elastic if it doesn't absorb any of the energy in an interaction.
Yeah, this is the engineer coming back on, no it does, but yeah, releasing it, yes. It's a different...
Yeah, okay, It doesn't retain it, it releases it back out. So some dispositional properties are perfectly respectably physical. It seems we have no good physicalist account of red. So what we need to say is, red's a real property. Red's a real property because it's involved in causal explanations. I stopped the car because the light was red. I ate the banana because it was black enough for Granddad. Nobody else wanted it. Those are explanations. So that what dispositional accounts lots of times are attempts to do is to say, okay, there is a psychological explanatory space, and there is a physical explanatory space, and try to squeeze them together. And my question is, why would anyone be strongly motivated to do that? To squeeze those two realms of explanation together. We might have a perfectly good explanation of why the physical realm, of why the autonomous physical realm is there. And that's because of neuroscience. But the reduction of that autonomous physical realm to neuroscience strikes me simply a mistake. It's utterly unmotivated. I don't know why we make that mistake. Likewise with colors here. So unless one has an antecedent commitment to physicalism, which is itself unmotivated, then what we'd have to say is colors play an explanatory role in psychological explanations and in human life. We do things because of the colors they have. Just as we motivate, just because we act in certain ways because of the smells things have.
This sounds very familiar to Penelope Matty, who's a naturalist, seems to be kind of almost in line with this project because what she calls for, at least in her most recent book that we read in Naturalism.
Second philosophy?
Yes, sir.
Which I've not yet read.
She's asking for what we need right now for color perception is to understand the refraction of lights, how they hit the eye space, where they come from, how they affect the the user, if you will, and what that has, what the implications are psychologically for us. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that a naturalist is palpating kind of this hesitancy is, obviously there's the physical properties of it. I'm just still confused with science. We say, okay, there's an electrical underlying, we can mark out what the composition of H2O is, and we can get a scientific explanation. Well, this valence shell accepts this valence shell, and yada, yada, yada. Valence all the way down. Then you get to fields. But with color, we don't really have the substrate really in place to say, well, okay, this would be the better place to reduce it. When we had chemistry in 1800s, 1900s solve this issue of what water is, it made sense. I'm trying to understand why that's fundamentally different from a neuroscience trying to capture that.
How will we judge a neuroscientific theory about colors and color perception to be right?
Okay, fair.
And the answer is because it predicts what colors people will attribute to the things during the experiment.
So it kind of leaves null the set of color objects external to the mind.
Yeah.
Boom, that's what I needed.
No one is denying that our color experience and colors themselves have a physical explanation. What's being denied here is that physical explanation is a reductive one. The physical realm is autonomous. The realm of colors is also autonomous. And so explanations go on in there. I mean, in a sense, you might say colors don't cry out for explanations. The colors of things are used in explanations. I ate it because it was yellow. I didn't eat it because it was green.
Is that an externalist view of perception?
Well, I think so. Yeah. I think anyone who is an externalist about color concepts, as all right-thinking people are, will also be an externalist about color experience too. There are no qualia.
Just a couple things ran through my mind when you were talking about this, because this is like remnants from last semester in philosophy of language.
Yeah.
It was actually, Locke was our very first reading, and I remember we had some strong feelings about his inverted qualia. But anyway, besides that, I was thinking about, because I'm the realist when it comes to a lot of things, including this idea, but my curiosity lies within like our understanding of how animals are colorblind who don't see it, and how, like, I know that there must be some sort of differences in our eyes and everything like that, but so being the realist that I am, it's like I want to question, are we just perceiving them that way and that's our explanation of it, and is it completely the most relevant way to do it? Because are we, again, being like kind of egocentric, where we're like, well, we have an explanation for it, this has to be it? I don't know, it's just like something that kind of crossed my mind. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's what this particular project is trying to do, is to open a conceptual, this is one of the ways to understand it, I think, is to try to open an explanatory space, or open a conceptual space, which got closed in early modern philosophy, and we saw it being shut closed this semester in Galileo's essay.
right.
And that is the distinction between being what contemporary philosophers call response-dependent and being subjective. To say that something is subjective is a way of saying that it is in fact not part of the furniture of the world. It is only part of the furniture of our minds, or our visual systems, or our perceptual system generally. And that's Galileo's claim. What this view says is, yeah, colors are response-dependent entities. Yeah, values are response-dependent entities. You need a detector of value. You need a detector of colors for them to produce the experiences which they produce. Doesn't mean they're subjective. They're there.
Yeah, see, I guess that's my like consideration, is like, because I'm into like realism and stuff like that, I'm like, well, they're just there, that's it. They're, it's an objective, outside of us it would still exist, but then at the same time I'm like, well, or that may be so, that there are a specific set of, colors that do exist.
That's why I might not have in one of the theories. Yeah, colors, 3 powers to induce in observers of a specifiable kind, physical responses of a kind peculiar to those observers. So bees detect colors, let's suppose. And so those properties will produce particular physical responses. But how the color looks, I should not have put there what I did. Colors are objective in intrinsic properties. One of the ways you could approach it, this is to say, and this is a view that I might have some sympathy with, actually, is McGinn's view. McGinn's become something of a primitivist about color himself. 6. and that is a certain physical property. We detect the mode of presentation of that property in us is redness. It is as red. The mode of presentation of that property in bees is that it appears zzz to them.
So that basically colors can be just like the way that we perceive them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they could still actually be out there, but it's just our perception and understanding of them. So I guess what the interesting point I kind of was thinking about was, you know, some animals are colorblind, some people are colorblind. Do they have it right and do we have it wrong? That's
Some people have, some people are perfect Philistines and have no appreciation of the beauty of Edouard Manet's bar at the Folie Bergère too. I had one student in the introductory philosophy class where I showed that picture, and she said that, you know, that the barmaid was ugly. Well, you're picky. I think she's strikingly beautiful. Those beautiful, sad face I've ever seen. You know, so yeah. I mean, some people are just not equipped to detect the properties that are really there.
Well, my consideration is, what if they actually are the ones that have it right, and we're all misperceiving it, what it actually is in the world?
Oh, that we're all under. Like
the ones that we think because they're
an evil genius is messing with us.
Well, no.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, like, because, you know, it's like an external thing. Like, let's consider that colors are in the external world independent of us. And we go out and we perceive them, but there are, like, animals and there's people and stuff that are colorblind or have certain types of color blindness. And so what I'm curious about is, what if they're actually seeing the world as it really is and we perceive it differently? You know what I mean? Like, just considering the opposite side of it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Well,
I mean, it's just a thought that came to my mind whenever we're talking about all these colors and stuff and how we can perceive them, and are they in our minds, or are they actually out there and stuff like that? That's just another consideration I think too. It's a bit different.
Yeah, it would seem to me that self-evidently the burden of proof would be on those who would say that people who were incapable of detecting what the rest of us detect are not the ones with the handicap. But we're perceiving more than is really there. Which is not to say that that's not a genuine phenomenon. Obviously, most of us overinterpret things enormously, right? What did he mean by that? Who was that? Who was that one French diplomat who said when Talleyrand died? What did he mean by that? You know, prone to over-interpreting every nuance. But I mean, that seems to be. Well, here's my thing. That seems to be an empirical question. And it's going to be settled by people talking about what their experience is. And we tend to think that unless something shows up in an MRI, then the only way that we can come to get any access to it is, say, through social science, through questionnaires or something like that. I mean, those are our two automatic fallbacks. I'm saying it's perfectly rational to say we are seeing colors that they don't see. They're good. And that will be true. That is a perfectly rational, a perfectly warranted conclusion from our experience. The colorblind people are the ones with the handicap. Yeah.
Thinking back to your metaphysics course, I believe it was Aristotle's explosivism. It kind of is countenancing all possible worlds.
Or all possible kinds.
Kinds. Yeah, sorry, it's been 2 years. 2.5. I'm thinking reductionism, the way that you presented it, seems kind of similar insofar as it entails things that have properties that they don't have, entities that have properties that they don't, which seems to be, as you said, lacking yet gratuitous, all in the same breath. I kind of am starting to agree with this now, because you're talking about Frege's reductionism. It's really missing large holes in the set of things, the set of properties that you would want to be accompanied by a sufficient explanation. So,
well, it's simply that there seem to be constraints on possible answers that the assumption that we have access to something real would issue would produce a constraint here. That was not very articulate. Apparently the same thing, and this is something I know nothing about, so I should probably keep my mouth shut, but I won't. String theories, as sort of fundamental theories, is that they seem to be unconstrained in a similar way as logicist theories about numbers. It's a sense that we're just playing around here. We're not